Be nice to see you.
And look at what they want to put up there. All these different things.
Oh, look at that. Great.
Grocery store. Yeah. Really?
And everybody just take care of here.
The other day. And then you leave again. Yeah, how much do you see in 2 minutes? So, but anyways, I was getting my name, and I looked at it and I said to Mark, I said, I didn't want to say nothing. One table, more chairs.
Yeah.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to see all of these faces. A lot of them are brand new to me. And you all know I've walked this neighborhood a lot, so I'm happy to see a lot of new faces. If those who don't know me, I am Maurice Stovall, one of the neighborhood watch chairs, and also the person that walks up and down Grove Road constantly. So when you see me walking, I'm getting my mileage in. So I am excited, though, to have, because this is a very special meeting for us, and that's why you all are here. We're proud of our Gault Village community. I don't think I even have to say that. But I know by what's been going on, the interest that you all have, that's why you're here tonight. We're so grateful for all of you that are coming. As you know, we always have, for those of you who haven't been here, there's a few little housekeeping things we have to always take care of. So we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of the meeting.
There you go. But
we also have to cover the appetizers. So y'all bear with us. Also tonight, for those of you, there are some light refreshments, so please make sure to get some. As I always tell them when we do have them at the meeting, I don't want to take anything home, so please enjoy it. Thank you. So a couple of things that I know we're going to make sure and address tonight. Those of you that set out the green waste management cans, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you also set out extra stuff? You don't have to raise your hand, but I want you to think about that. And the reason being is because I found out waste management, for those of you that have your cans, if you read your handbook, you're honestly not supposed to set out extra stuff without buying a particular ticket for the extra. And that's something I asked Crystal to bring tonight to show you all. She said, thank you, Crystal. But we want to make sure you understand that, because the township is paying through contract. And so when waste management, if they're being nice, sometimes the drivers will pick up extra stuff. They're honestly not supposed to. They're supposed to leave you a green tag to tell you to go purchase one of the extra tickets. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because we have been a community that usually follows all the rules. Y'all are good about that. And I just want to make sure we stay on track of what we're doing, and so that waste management doesn't feel like they're picking and choosing whose stuff they get. Because sometimes the neighbors say, well, they got my neighbors, but they didn't get mine. We want to make sure and hold them accountable that they treat everyone exactly the same. So we want to make sure that if you know you're going to have extra garbage, please go over to the township, purchase the ticket, put it on your can, and waste management will know to pick it up, and therefore it won't get left. Because I actually had a misunderstanding, set out some extra garbage, and they didn't get it. And I was a little upset. And I was like, wait a minute, I followed the rules. And I called the township, they said, read your handbook. I said, oh, that's ambiguous language. So, you know, I tried to become an attorney real quick. And so, but thankfully they understood, they came back, picked it up, and so even I know from now on, if I'm going to have extra, I'm going to make sure I go purchase my ticket as well. For those of you, I know when Crystal gets up, we'll talk about the road. I don't know how many of you have seen, it's coming along. I actually had a chance to talk out with one of the engineers who was out there, and they are actually getting it pretty close to where they're going to be putting the asphalt down soon. So we will have Grove Road back open again. And I know the neighbors on Margarita and Clarita will be very happy. So, but so far things have been going well. So tonight we'll get started with our reports. We have our fire department here. So we ask you guys to come on up front. And I know you kind of shut and go, whoa, what's going on? Got a large audience tonight. So let's welcome our fire department and step up here with videotaping tonight. So we
I have nothing to report, but I will take any questions you have. Nice.
Oh, see, that's I want to say how much, though, we really appreciate our fire department. Let's give them a hand for this. We're going to see Deputy Bynum with his report in the community. And I know we have a lot tonight, so we ask that you just kind of share and look over some of the reports. So I'll just kind of pass them around, and everybody, we can kind of share. And actually what I'll do is start a group this way, and I'm going to start another group this way.
Well, while Maurice is those passed out, I see this is a bigger crowd than usual. So a lot of new faces. I introduce myself. I'm Deputy Bynum with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Went into my 6th year with the Sheriff's Office. I graduated from Eastern Michigan, played football 08-13. Started here in 2013. Since I've been here, currently now I'm part of our PTO program, which I train new deputies recruit deputies and police officers to transfer over to the sheriff's office, kind of get them acclimated and understand how we do things here at the sheriff's office. I'm also a hostage negotiator watch liaison for Ypsilanti Township. Does everyone have the stat sheet that was passed around? I didn't expect this big of a crowd, so I'm gonna print off about 40 copies. So if you could share with your neighbor, that would be great. So as you take a look at the stat sheet, you see at the top it says current from August 26th to September 22nd, and previous is what is our last meeting. So the CFS, that's a call for service. Anytime you call 911 or a non-emergency number, that generates a call for service. That key fob and press it twice so that you know that your alarm is armed. Are there any questions or concerns for me regarding Gault Village? Everything's looking smooth on our numbers are down, everything is going good. 2 crimes, that's not bad. We just want to get those to be a goose egg 0. All right. Any questions? All right, thank you folks. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Due diligence, and I'm glad to see that we are, because I've seen on our Facebook page, everyone is reminding each other to lock your cars. And we all know it's sad that we
Raise your hand if you're a resident of Sugarbrook neighborhood. Okay, we did invite Sugarbrook neighborhood to this meeting as well, just because of the subject matter at hand. But they meet tomorrow evening, so we'll just take good notes and we'll share with them. I'll share with them tomorrow what we talk about today, okay? In terms of township announcements, because you already brought up Grove Road, I'll start there. I've been telling people that by trick or treat, I'm a great first step. If I can't help you, I can find another department in the township that can help you. I've been here and doing this for about 18 months. I also graduated from EMU. I won't say how much longer before him I was here. I won't date myself. But that's who I am. Yes. Okay, I brought 35, and I thought that that would be enough. We have double that, though. So if you can share with the neighbor, it's a great opportunity to get to know folks that live in your area. And then
Yes.
I'll be sure to post an electronic copy to your Facebook page, if that's okay. All right. So the few things that I have are not nearly as exciting as what was before me and what will come after me. However, there is a free shredding event on October 19th. How many of you have participated in the free shredding event before? All right, well, I'll talk to this brother right here. So on October 19th at the Ford Boulevard Fire Station, completely free shredding event, up to 100 pounds of paper. Right, see, I like when people get excited about shredding. And you can stay and watch it be shredded. You don't have to take out your paper clips or your staples. And it's April 1st of 2020. Because you are here and you are engaged, I am very likely preaching to the choir, right? But I want you to share with your friends and your neighbors and your church members and your coworkers and your grandkids and your kids that they need to fill out their census forms. We have approximately 57,000, a little more than 57,000 residents here in the township. It is so important that every single resident is counted, because when it's time for nonprofit organizations, they use that census data. When it's time for us to ask for money from the state, we use that census data. When schools are doing studies, when they need resources, they use that census data. So it is so important that we all fill out that form. There will be more ways to do it. In the past, you had the booklet that you get in the mail. This will be the very first year that you can fill out your census form lost or they're stopped in front of a house, they're not casing it, I promise. They are collecting information just to ensure that that is in fact a residential household, and to take note of the number of people that live in that residential household. They will always have a badge that shows that they are a census worker, and they will also have a government issued laptop. Some of them are working in pairs, others are working as individuals, but I promise they're not lost. They're just confirming that this is in fact a residential property. Okay? So when is Census Day? April 1st. All right, what are we going to do?
Fill out the form.
Fill out the form. Yes, we want to get a complete count. That's the word you'll hear a lot, complete count. The last announcement that I have, and did we talk about the YMCA last month? Ypsilanti Charter Township Government, in partnership with the Washtenaw County Park and Recreation Commission, in partnership with the YMCA, are very, very seriously researching the possibility of an Eastern Washtenaw County YMCA. The YMCA proposed property would be on Huron Street, right before it turns into Whitaker Road. Are you familiar with where the post office is on Huron Street? There's a property right next door, or not next door, I guess next grass. But that property is owned outright by the township. We call it the Seaver property because at one point in time it was the Seaver Farm. The property is worth just a little under $4 million. We acquired this property several years ago because a developer wanted to put 1,000 manufactured homes on Huron Street. Can you imagine how different our township would be? However, the elected board at that time had the foresight to fight that developer. It went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and the township won. So we acquired that property, paid for the property, but we acquired it. And it was written in at that time that it would be used for either recreation or township business. And so when the YMCA, based on their collection of data and survey results, decided that they need a facility on the eastern side of Washtenaw County, they approached the board and board members. They toured lots of property in the township that's owned by the board. And this property on Huron Street fit so many, it just checked off lots of boxes, right? It's centrally located. You can access it from Ypsi City, from Ypsi Township, from Pittsfield Township, from Superior Township. Even those folks over in Van Buren can get there pretty easily or quickly if they needed to. It is already in the main thoroughfare. We have easy access to the highway there at 94. There are lots of other businesses. Two pools, one that would be Olympic swimming, you know, that pool, and then one that would be appropriate for families and people of differing abilities. And in the event that this amazing and wonderful proposal goes well, right now it's in a feasibility stage, which means there's an outside firm that is trying to figure out how feasible it is for this property to be used for this purpose. Once that feasibility comes back positive, and we have our fingers crossed, right? More survey information to residents within 15 minutes of that property to see if this is something that that you all would like to see there. And then they would start construction sometime in 2021. Now, the property itself is 28 acres total. 4 of those acres are protected wetlands, so they would have 24 acres to build on. Can you imagine how many amazing things they can do with 24 acres? In addition to the physical facility, there will be outdoor space available, so maybe there'll be pickleball courts, or maybe there'll be soccer fields or basketball courts outdoors. Maybe there'll be a splash pad somewhere on that property, right? It will come in phases, so they will build the building first, and then outdoor accommodations will come later. Membership will be based on a sliding scale. So they do studies to find out what our median income is in whichever section of the area that is accessible to that property. And then they design the membership fees based on what people in the area can afford. So those people who may not be able to afford full membership fees, they will submit particular paperwork and they will be able to get membership at a discounted rate that is affordable for their family and for their situation. Someone asked, and this question is probably in the back of your minds also, would we get an increase in our taxes as a result of this facility? Some of you are probably thinking this, right? Well, we renewed a millage for the Park and Rec Commission a couple of years ago, right? So we're already paying an extended Park and Rec Commission millage. And then the YMCA is a self-sustaining nonprofit organization, right? They have facilities all over the state and all over the country, and they know how to find the money. They know how to find grant money from large grantors. And so the building will be owned and operated by the YMCA using philanthropy, using grant monies, using donations. So we will not get an increase in our taxes in order to maintain a YMCA building. Another question that I've heard come up is, well, what about the community center out on East Black Road? Well, it's a community center, and it still serves, very much serves the community that uses that building. And so there are no plans to close the community center on East Clark Road. I have a lot of faith in this because there's money being invested into that building right now, right? To make sure that it is still able to service the population that uses that building on a regular basis. YCC rents space in that building. There are lots of senior programming and trips that happen out of that building. There's gonna be an awesome glow-themed Nerf war. Has young people that are interested in Nerf wars. So the community center will stay open, it will stay active, it will stay functioning. And I think that might be all. Yes?
Question for you.
Mhm.
There's a couple of us here from Pruitt Community
Yes.
across the street. I know you said this was Forgotten Village, and for, I believe you said Sugarloaf.
Sugarbrooke right next door.
Sugarloaf next door. How do we get invited?
Well, you're here, I'm so glad to see you. But if you give us some contact information either to me or Pastor Mike or to Maurice, we can make sure that you all get invites to. This is a standing meeting. It happens every fourth Tuesday of the month. Fourth Monday, I'm sorry. Tomorrow's Sugarbrooke, that's fourth Tuesday. So you're welcome here anytime. And then are you in, which Cliffs property are you in?
Right across the street over here,
Cliffs Community. Cliffs Community, okay. Right, so I don't think that you all have an individual neighborhood watch. If that's something you're interested in, you can talk to me after. Otherwise, we can invite you to Sugarbrooke's meeting on Tuesday. You can come to Gault Village's meeting on Monday. And then Cliffs on the Bay, which is another property inside that, further down. Okay, they also have a neighborhood watch meeting though every other month. And so yeah, you're welcome anytime. All that information is always posted on ytown.org. Plug, if you sign up for Ytown email alerts, you'll get all this information at the beginning of the week. So on Monday, I get an email that says, here are all the events happening in Ypsi Township, and you can choose to attend whichever ones you choose to, or not to attend which ones you don't want to. And it includes like board information about the board meetings. It includes all the neighborhood watch meetings. It includes lots of special events that are happening, like the shredding thing on October 19th. And so I encourage you to sign up for Ytown email alerts. Ytown email, and all you need is a name and an email. We're not begging for personal info either. Yes?
YMC is going to be, it's nonprofit, so does it help in any way tax-wise? What is the impact there?
Well, I'm going to divert that question to our trustees. Because they're a nonprofit organization, I would assume that they would not pay property taxes, so they would not be on the tax roll. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, right. But I feel like, for me personally, the benefits will outweigh the fact that they don't necessarily contribute that way. Because what they do provide are jobs from every level, from your 14 and 15-year-old summer camp counselors, you know, all the way up to attendants that work the building who may be retirees. What they'll provide is an incentive for other businesses to develop in the area surrounding them, which means more jobs, right? That might mean more sit-down restaurants. That might mean, you know, a yoga studio that decides that they want to be close because people are going to the YMCA. So there'll be other advantages, even though it won't necessarily be a building that's on the tax roll. Yes?
Do we as a township have any ability to hold them accountable to the sorts of things that you alluded to that are aside from, well, put it nicely, we already have a YMCA that's just a big giant gym for people that don't need a discount on a gym membership.
Right.
It's somewhere else in the county,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they moved into that new location, they did away with the temporary housing and a lot of things that were, what I thought were helpful to people in need, and I thought I don't see that at that YMCA. So
Okay.
how can we encourage, they're going to move in this facility, how can we get more of the services for the people that need it than necessarily having a fancy gym for folks that will, quite frankly, get a gym membership just about anywhere.
Right.
I-
So how do we
I
hold them
understand how
accountable?
the sliding scale works,
Right,
I understand
right.
how all that works, but I'd like to see more of an effort made for
Right.
people who need their services. They did away with the temporary housing when they moved the other facility and things like that.
Yeah,
for-
I remember.
For folks in the community that need help.
So how do we hold them accountable? I've got elected officials here that can answer. My first answer will be that you have elected officials here. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Heather Darrell Rowe. I'm one of our trustees and Jimmy's here, so get up here, Jimmy. Come on. We're a team. We're always a team. But one of the things about like holding them accountable, first of all, is that the land itself, I'm sorry, I'm putting my back to anyone. The land itself is like they're required to use it for that purpose and that purpose only. And if for whatever reason it didn't work out, that land would come right back to our township. And then a few meetings ago, we had a then like nothing ever happens to do that. And so we're so excited in the township, the whole board is excited because we actually feel like this is a really great step to ensure that that's going to happen. And then so to further that, holding them accountable, you have a strong board who's here to support you in all areas, including developments in your own neighborhood, but also with the YMCA. And you can always contact us and reach us individually or collectively as a board too.
I'll just add to that, first of all, I'm Jimmy Wilson. Contracts. That's why it's so important for our attorneys to make sure that we have certain things in our contracts that speak on those things that you just mentioned right there. If you come out to our township board meetings sometime, just get that on the record to make sure that you're holding us as elected officials accountable for things like that. That would be excellent. The benefit of this also is the surrounding area on Whitaker Road, Huron Street. This is going to really spark some of that development that we've been looking for all these years. When this facility finally, once we finally see it, a lot of developers are already really, the buzz is really starting to go around. It's really going to help develop the whole land over there. So, a lot of benefits for this, but I would just encourage everyone, first and third Tuesdays, 7 o'clock is our board meeting. Come out and just put it on the record and anything that you have concerns over, but also for the YMCA as well.
I'll just say two things I thought about, Crystal, and then we're going to sit down because we like to come to listen and not talk. But one is Jimmy mentioned the businesses that it'll incorporate, and so to answer the question of taxes, hopefully that'll increase our taxable revenue within the township. And then also this gentleman here, you mentioned the sliding scale, but so for everyone who doesn't understand what that means, the YMCA works on a sliding scale. So they look at your household income, and then they base your membership fees based on that. So it really is a great opportunity for everyone to equally have access to this facility. Thanks for listening to us, but we'll be here after if you want to hear us talk more. Okay. We're here to listen.
Trustee Monica Ross Williams, who's their counterpart, is actually on the board for the YMCA. And so just as they say, come to the board meetings and put it on the record. She's also a resource. And if you've got concerns or questions about accountability specifically and what the YMCA board does and what their process is like, I will reach out to her. This is Mike Radzik. He is the Director of Community Standards here at Ypsi Township. He knows a lot more about this project than we do, so maybe he can answer also.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention in response to your question, that's a great point. Projects like this, the township would be a partner in it because we would be, our primary piece would be the land, the donation and use of the land. But projects like this, typically we would execute what's called a development agreement. All the stakeholders involved would sign it. It's crafted everyone who would eventually sign it. And in this case, the community's input as well, because your stakeholders, businesses as well. So it's township-owned property. And that development agreement is a legally binding contract. It specifies in great painstaking detail how the property is to be developed, what it's going to look like, how it will be operated, the services that would be provided, and then the safety nets for what ifs. So all those things would typically be covered. The other thing I wanted to mention, there's been early engagement with AAATA, and they're at least preliminarily very enthused about a super stop at the YMCA facility right off of Huron Street, because they already run buses up and down Huron Street to the Pruitt Shopping Center and to other areas, not only from the township locations, but from the city and elsewhere. And personally, I've been working in the township now for almost 40 years. This is going back to 81 when I was in police work with the sheriff's office. And I know firsthand there are so many youth in this community that end up in some form of trouble or police contacts over time as they're growing up. And so many times you just hear it repeated time after time. A board has nothing to do. If there is a recreational program, I don't have transportation to get there. And so the conversations with the live have been very, very positive. The sliding scale memberships where there are children and they can't get there will come with the bus pass so that they could get there and take advantage of those opportunities. Because right now they're just not able to do that. And so personally, I think over time this could be a generational true game changer for Ypsilanti Township in a lot of different things. And personally, I'm very excited to see this coming.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Any other questions at this time? The back of your News You Can Use newsletter has everybody's information on it. Nancy? You okay? No. Okay. Okay. You've got all of your township elected officials there. You've got the ordinance department there. You've got your state officials and your county officials there. So when you have questions, concerns, comments, you need clarification, reach out to them, right? We hold them accountable as well, right? You hold us accountable as well. So all of our information is there. I guess I'll be here after to address any specific neighborhood issues. Usually this is when I open it up and say, hey, how's the neighborhood? What's been going on? What can I address for you? In the interest of time and so that we can get to why everyone is here today. Just see me after or feel free to shoot me an email or give me a phone call if you have any other concerns, okay? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Krista. That was a mouthful. All right, so we had all of our appetizers. Now we're ready for the meat and potatoes, the Gault Village Shopping Center. And that's why you all are here. And also, again, I want to thank our township for coming out. Mike, Denny, and Charles as part of the township that have been on this as well. But also I want to introduce, for those of you, I know they've been going around to introduce themselves. So for those of you that didn't get to meet, I'm glad that I get to introduce them overall. The Gault Village Shopping Center owners of GV LLC. We have Nancy Hall. And Robert Hall. And I know you had questions. People were asking about our relationship because we have a whole street here in Gault Village.
I know that.
And that's why that came
I
up.
took a picture
So,
of that.
yes. And they're here from Kentucky. So we really appreciate them coming up. And they love our weather today because they said in Kentucky it's very hot right now. So, but at this time, we're going to allow them to get up to address you all, to present to you their information as well as allowing to have the township. The one thing I am asking is that everyone please try to limit your table conversations so that we can hear the whole matter. Yeah. So I know there are some people you're going to want to have side conversations, but if we can, let's truly try to limit it so we can hear everything. I really appreciate that they accepted the invitation to come out and speak tonight. So at this time, let's welcome the whole family from Kentucky.
Kind of like our idea of what we think it should look like. None of these are, it's not a guarantee, it's just like an idea. And basically I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have, like time frames, that type of thing, or if anybody has any other type of questions that they're,
Can you increase your volume and slow your speech?
Sure,
Makes it
yes,
easier to
yes.
hear and understand.
Very well, yeah.
Thanks.
So basically, again, I'm just here to answer any questions that anyone might have about the Gault Village. Yes.
I have a question. There's some residents on Coleman Street, right behind the new retaining wall.
Yes.
Some of them kind of lost some of their fencing.
Yes.
After the new retaining wall was put in, and they feel that they should be restored to what they were prior to the retaining wall. How feasible is it? Is it something that you can look into to see what could be done to help those residents?
Actually, that would be a question for the township. They were actually in charge of building the wall. So they would be the ones to answer that, I think. Does anybody else have any other questions? Any concerns?
We're here.
Yes, yes.
So you're presenting this look here.
It's a concept, it's an idea, if that makes sense, of what we want it.
So a concept of a grocery store.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
A concept of a hardware store. So
Yes.
it's not anything that is committed right now. None of these are committed.
We have a couple of interested parties, but nothing, concrete or any LOIs at this time. We don't have anything like that yet. We're still in negotiations because we need to redevelop it, give it a good look, so we can make that happen.
So the plan is you're keeping the existing buildings,
Yes.
but like
yes.
a new storefront on all of
Right.
them?
The whole front end is going to be completely redeveloped, yeah.
What about the parking lot?
Definitely, absolutely.
And
yeah.
then additional lighting?
New lighting, yes. New lighting, yes, absolutely. And cameras, for that matter. And lighting in the back as well. And more greenery, so we're going to create more islands for the parking lot as well.
Okay.
Yes?
I'm interested in the timeline.
We're gonna have about a 2-year timeline.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's 2 year to finish or 2 years to start?
2 year, no, we're not,
Okay.
we're starting immediately. I'd
Okay.
say about 2 years, maybe 3 at the very, very most, depending on, sometimes there's some delays, so.
And nobody would be taking occupancy during that time, or might they be?
Well, no.
No, not really, okay.
We're gonna be in negotiation probably on a few of them,
All right.
once they start to see things happening, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yep, gotcha.
Yes.
In trying to make the repairs and things that you're gonna do, are the residents who are already in there, they're gonna have to move out, or?
No.
Like family,
no.
as you're doing?
No, they won't have to move out, absolutely not. We're gonna do the repairs that are necessary for the actual tenants, and then we're gonna work around it. Yes?
On the new lighting and stuff that you were speaking of, I know the city of Detroit has what they call green light zones.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Where the cameras tie right in with the local police department.
Gotcha.
Is that a possibility?
Actually, in the very beginning, me and the township had a little bit of a discussion about that, maybe, doing something like that. I think that would be a great idea. Yes?
I feel like we're starting with the premise that everyone understands everything that's gone on up to this point. Can you give us a little bit of the history in terms of when you purchased, how you purchased, up to the point where we are now? I don't want to assume that everyone's seen the website.
Sure, okay. Like, you want just like a timeline, or?
Yeah, just a brief
Yeah, we purchased.
synopsis.
Yeah, the purchase took a while. I think the final deal was back in November of 2017 when we finally came to an agreement of purchasing, and then we didn't actually do the finalization until August of 2018 is when we actually got it, and then we actually closed, I think, around the 20th.
Okay.
It says the 16th, but it was actually the
2018.
20th. Yeah, so 20th, 22nd. We just closed on that day. So, yeah.
So rumor has it
Yes.
that you also had additional shopping centers that you renovated?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, so you've
And
done this in
buildings.
the past.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we have. This one is a little bit more in rougher condition than what we're used to, but it's all the same. So, same situation. Yes.
Is there any talk of reopening that ramp to the expressway?
Oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
We would love that.
That'd be fantastic. Now that there are such things as social media and Facebook, I think maybe it could be a real possibility, because I think back in 71, 73? I don't know exactly when it was closed down, but I mean, there was no social media, so there was no real pressure, if that makes sense, to try to get something saved or reopened. But I think now we have the ability to kind of put a little bit of pressure, maybe, and get it back open. We'll have to see.
Wasn't it?
I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
I was just saying, wasn't it closed because the, two entrances or exits were too close together? Is that what I heard over?
I heard that it was, according to the clippings that I read, that it was dangerous, that trucks were flipping over or something. I think that when they were getting off the ramp, that's what I heard. I mean, I don't know. Yes.
Mr. Hull, thank you for coming tonight. I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit about what your interest was in this property and this neighborhood and community when you first began this endeavor.
Sure. Basically, I mean, that's what we do. We look for value-added shopping centers, how we can redevelop them and make them better again, if that makes sense, put a new look on them. And, going around the neighborhood, I kind of, just talking to a few people, they said that they would like to see it redeveloped. And some of the main things that they wanted was a grocery store and a hardware store. So, and I just really, to be honest with you, I really like the community. I think, in fact, to be honest with you, in Kentucky, I mean, you guys seem to be so nice here. I don't know what it is. I ran in front of somebody at the shopping center, and I was waiting to actually get yelled at, but I didn't. They were like, "Oh, I'm sorry," I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it was my fault, So I'm like, "Wow, these people are really super nice." So, not to say that was the main thing, but little things here and there just wanted me to. I just wanted to kind of. It just seemed like a good community. So.
How did you hear about Ypsilanti?
Well, like I said, we look for properties that are on auction, and we just happen to check them out, and then we choose one, and this one happened to be one that we chose, so, yeah.
Well, I
Yes.
can speak for a lot of people in the area. We are really excited about this.
Well, the whole idea of this meeting is to make everything transparent, and so we can be held accountable, so we can get stuff done. So if everybody's, no offense, on our backs to get it done, we want to get it done. So that's the whole idea. That's why we're here today, yes.
So how did you go about finding, stores, businesses to occupy them?
Well, that's a good question. There's a convention in Las Vegas that happens usually in May, and you kind of talk to different, I guess, retailers and that type of thing. Plus, old-fashioned getting on the phone and talking to them and working deals. So our whole goal is, Here, it's not about the money, it's really about the community, to be honest with you. And if we need to, once we get stuff redeveloped and we need to put a grocery store in, if we need to give them like a 2 to 3 year lease at no charge, just to get them in, we're willing to do that. We won't make any money up front, we want you guys to have a place to go, and a place to shop and that type of thing. And we really believe that it needs to be a shopping center, so, and this is just, like I said, just our concept, so
Right.
that's.
So is there a way that when you do have people that are interested, that we are notified somehow? I mean, I know that we can all have a
Well,
voice to say yes or no, but
Sure,
like,
sure.
just
Well,
do
what we
something
could
that
do
people really want.
is, like, we started like a group, and basically we also started a site, just kind of give you guys updates on what's going on. So, sure, absolutely, we can definitely say, hey, we got an LOI, a letter of intent from a certain company. Hey, what do you guys think? But like I said, our whole goal is to get it filled up, and what we need to do to get it filled up, we're gonna do, even if it costs us money to do it. So we want to see it refilled up again. Yeah. So, yes.
What other properties, do you have another property like that now that we?
Cincinnati, we have, let's see here, we have one in New Albany, Indiana. And we deal in office buildings as well too. So, I mean, this is what we do. So, we are a newer company. We started in 2012, so we're not that old, but we've done it several times, so we know what we're doing.
Would it be possible to see for the other ones that you've done, would it be possible to see maybe some before and after?
Absolutely, sure.
At least after, if you
And we can post that. Absolutely, yes, we definitely can do that.
I have a question from the live stream. They want to know, they've read the township has planned to demolish the shopping center. Is that true? If so, they'd like to hear what the township has to say and what you have to say.
Well, we did get a demo order in April. Of course, we don't want to demo it, and with everybody that we talk to, they don't seem like they want to demo it. But we don't want that to happen. So, but the township's here, so they can maybe talk about that. I guess I'll give them the floor. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, everybody again, Mike Radzik. Does the township want to see it demolished? No. Did anybody here have an opportunity to participate in the master plan process that occurred? And there was a site visit, I believe, at the shopping center that Mr. Hull participated in. Our planning department specifically informed him and invited him, and he did come and participate in that. And it's being called the Ypsilanti Township 2040 Master Plan, the vision for 20 years down into the future. And the vision was a result of direct input from members of the neighborhood and property owners around the shopping center. And there were two visions. One would be to demolish it and then redevelop it under some different, more modern planning type of philosophy, and the other would be to repair it in place as it is now, 20 separate retail spaces all in one place. And overwhelmingly, the input from the community was they wanted to see the future visioning, the demolition of the property and the redevelopment. Now, that is in our master plan as a representation of the will of the community in terms of what their preference was. It is by no means a plan of Ypsilanti Township. We have never said that we want it demolished, and it is not our intent or purpose to cause that to happen. The demolition order that was issued in April that Mr. Hall alluded to came from our building official. As I think our attorney, Denny McLean, who's been in court on this case now for 4 or 5 years through 3 different owners, is prepared to give you a very detailed breakdown of what the history was. But I'll just tell you, once Mr. Hall had acquired it, I think near the end of 2018, the court required him to provide the township, I think within 90 days of that acquisition, with some kind of an action plan with a timeline on what he hoped to and planned to accomplish. We did meet with him. He did provide that document. We brought copies. There may be enough for everyone. You're more than welcome to have a copy. It's a public document. And it included detailed repair and replacement of the roof in, I think, 7 different sections. 5 of the 7 sections were to have been completed already by now. And then very detailed analysis and action plan of the repair of all the other interior spaces, the parking lot, the lighting, landscaping, so on and so forth. And unless I'm reading it wrong, the majority of that should have been completed by now. and of course, hasn't been. And so our building official visited the site. You may have seen some of the temporary fencing around the brick pillars. Those were determined from deterioration and decay and falling bricks to be dangerous to pedestrians. We didn't want to see anybody injured. And so, because there had been no action to make these repairs and put it back into productive use, we issued the demolition order. But like any demolition order under the property maintenance code, it's an one or the other. You can repair it and cure all the code violations, or you can demolish it. It's your choice. But in the absence of any progress at that point, we were looking towards demolition. Is that what the plan is at this point? Because nothing else had been happening, or very little else, out of fairness. So that's how that all came about. And I really don't want to engage in debate or finger pointing or anything like that. But I will say I was disheartened, as a lot of us were, to read some of the things on the website. There were some half-truths and some inaccuracies. And I can tell you, for many years now, the township has wanted nothing more than to see this place completely repaired, not just one or two spaces, not half of it, not 3/4 of it. We need, like we did with the Liberty Square Townhouse project back in 2013-14. It wasn't good enough to have 5 townhouses out of 150 that were habitable, when everything around it was mold infested, so on and so forth. I'm sure you recall several years ago, there was a cottage and pizza in the mall on the far east side in that north-south situated building. And unfortunately, we had to displace that business because the vacant space immediately next to it had such harmful and advanced mold growth that it was causing people in the restaurant to get sick. And so they eventually had to leave. That was under Mr. McLaughlin's ownership, not Mr. Hall's ownership, obviously. It was quite a long time ago. And there's been one owner in between them, a company out of New York City area called Namdar. Namdar never came to court, not once. They never put a dime into doing anything with it. Mr. Hall has had it now for about a year, give or take. He did come to court for the very first time last week. We were very encouraged with that. And we're looking forward to seeing what happens. We're on the same, I think we're all on the same team here, on the same side, including Mr. Hall. We just want to see this thing return to productive, prosperous use and get rid of the eyesore that I know all of you have been burdened with for way too long.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Resnick. I'm glad that you're here. If you want it to be redeveloped, which that's what we want, I think all you guys want to do that. The question that I have, and I did jump the gun when I bought this property. I'm just wanting to know what the take is, and I should have asked you this early on, but I came in, as a new person, but you guys made me a defendant. So can you explain that, why you made me a defendant?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I should probably defer to counsel, but I'll tell you.
Sure, yeah.
I'll tell you that I'm always doing things against attorney advice. But essentially, the lawsuit was already in existence. We first sued Mr. McLaughlin, actually not him personally, his company. He then, under cover of darkness during the Christmas holiday break, unbeknownst to us, sold it to Namdar out of New York. And then they eventually put it up for auction.
Yes, they did.
And I believe you were the one and only bidder on the auction site. And so you ended up acquiring it.
Sure.
And personally, I was very hopeful of what would happen. Unfortunately, it was already under court-ordered receivership.
Sure.
And so when you acquired it, and we told you this before you signed it, when you acquire this, you're also buying yourself a lawsuit because we have to add you as a defendant. Then.
No, I understand. We had met earlier, way before I bought it, and I met with, I think, the Carlisle group as well. Yep. And my understanding is that I wouldn't become a defendant, that I would, pay. In fact, he actually told me at the meeting that I would not be a defendant. Like, I'm a new person buying this thing, but then it got to the point where we were getting close to close. Already got a lot of money into it. And I just agreed to do that. I did agree to do that, thinking that, okay, well, they're going to build a wall. It'll take maybe 3 months. And I'm thinking after they build the wall, we got the order that says the receivership stops after the wall gets built. And there would be no need for the receivership of the lawsuit. So I just assumed that 3 months later, hey, no big deal. The receivership will stop, the defendant, the lawsuit would stop. And that's what I was thinking in my mind, And then I have a fair shot at actually putting this thing together. And I didn't know this at the time, but when looking up the receivership by law takes over control of the property. and they actually are responsible for making the repairs. So, you know,
Another part I heard from.
even though we're together and we're trying to work together, you know, yes, I replaced the front part of the Family Dollar roof, and I was excited about getting it in the very beginning, which I started making repairs. But then, after realizing that this receivership's really not going to stop and the lawsuit's going to keep going, I kind of got upset, and we actually got a heated argument in February. And then, of course, the township came out to the property and wanted me to do all kinds of things, like put fencing up around the poles. Said, "Oh, we think these poles are bad," you know. And I'm not here to argue with you or anything like that. I want the truth to come out. So I felt like that I really didn't have a good shot, or that you know, that it just wasn't, I was treated unfairly, if that makes sense. Now, I'm willing to work this relationship out and start new again. I want to do that because I think it's best that we work together. They did drop the receivership. I'll give them that. They just did it instantly when I thought they were going to continue it after the wall was built, but they dropped it. So I hand it to you. Thank you for doing that. And I feel now that we can actually see some progress and really, you know, take this thing to the next level. But we do want to work with the township. But I want to make sure that everyone knows what actually happened. So my hands were tied. The receivership takes all the money, all the rents, and they didn't make it. They made very little repairs. I think it was like, what, 8%, I think?
Well, the receiver, Mr. Carl Fink,
Sure.
I'm sure many of you know, is a former district court judge here in Ypsilanti and a circuit court judge for Washtenaw County. He has been, and until recently, was the court-appointed receiver. The receiver's role, the scope of their authority on what they're allowed to do is very, very limited. And in this case, it was extremely limited, and he can speak for himself in that regard. I just want to say, intelligent people can agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that we were, in our conversations and our emails and whatnot, very clear that it's under receivership, you're purchasing it under those conditions. We've got to substitute you for the defendant from New York that never came to court.
It's like a shoplifter. Like, I didn't steal anything, but yet I gave a place to the shoplifter. But that's cool. It's no big deal. I'll be the shoplifter.
Well,
I want to help you guys. I really do.
The alternative, quite frankly, would have been if we dropped the lawsuit midstream with no improvements to the center and all these. I mean, this binder over here, if anybody wants to look at it after the meeting, feel free. It's 1,000 pages of code violations that date back to the end of 2015, 2 owners ago.
That's true.
And I think most of them, probably most of them still exist, and there may be some more that have been added. And we're going to be inspecting it with Mr. Hull's assistance and cooperation here in the next couple of weeks. So having said all that, Denny, you want to talk about some of the other issues that were raised? And then I think, in fairness to the receiver, Mr. Fink would have an opportunity to speak for himself and tell you directly what's been happening.
Again, my name's Denny McLean. I've always gone by Denny as Dennis. My partner Doug Winters and I have been Ypsilanti Township attorneys for many, many years. Doug grew up, lived here his whole life. I've lived here the last 50 years. I live across the street in the Cliffs communities. So, aside from being the legal counsel, I also would like to see this thing get off the ground and be restored.
Every time he picks up his dry cleaning over there, I have to hear about it.
True. But at any rate, I'm going to try and give you a brief history. Is anybody from Coleman Street here? Anybody here from Coleman Street? That's interesting. All right, I'll get to that in a moment. But 10 years ago, the grocery store was shut down because it was raining heavier inside the store than it was outside. We had to take Michael McLaughlin, the scourge that he was, to court then to get that store shut down and secured. Fast forward to 2015, the end of the year, the township goes in and does the inspection that you're welcome to look at, and over 1,000 pages of serious violations that for the most part still exist. So we filed suit in January of 2016, found out immediately McLaughlin had somehow managed to get out of his $1 million remaining mortgage by conning this company, Namdar, out of New York, who was just a real estate investment company, who only looked at a brochure and paid $1 million for the property. Never came and looked at it, never inspected it. When they found out what they had, then the war began. We named them in the lawsuit. We could never get them here in Michigan in the state court. So we had to deal through their attorneys there and one local attorney here. And eventually, it was agreed that they were going to put the property up for auction, and as Mike told, the company was the only bidder apparently, and I think paid $355,000 for it and mortgaged it for $817,000.
There's no mortgage on it.
Well, that's what the mortgage was.
I got you.
And it's recorded, and it was assigned.
Yeah.
So at any rate, if it's been paid off, that's news to us. So the bottom line is, eventually, we could see Namdar was going to do nothing. So in October of 2016, we requested Judge Swartz, the circuit judge that had the assigned case, to appoint a receiver to take over the actual running of the property that Namdar was not doing. And that included a failing retaining wall along the eastern border of that property. Those of you who've lived here and have seen that wall probably would agree with you. You don't need an engineer to tell you that the rear yards of the people on Coleman Street are going to wind up in the alley. So Judge Swartz chose former Judge Carl Fink here, who I'll introduce shortly, to act as the receiver. In fact, Carl's dad was the first judge I ever appeared in front of in 1975 in 14A1 Circuit Court over by Hogback, if you, any of you that are old enough as I am. But at any rate, so Carl was charged with the responsibility for simply making sure the property was secure and not to make it economically viable or improve it. That is not the job of a receiver in Michigan, and the appeals court decision that specifically states that was the township's case versus another landlord by the name of David Kircher. And I mean, Mr. Hall has made his opinion as to what a receiver is, and I beg to differ.
Well, it's under the law.
Mr. Hall.
It's the law. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're a legal expert too. All right, so at any rate, in October of 2016, the receiver gets appointed. He hires engineering consultants as he's required to do. He's not an engineer. And the property had to be inspected. Testing had to be done to determine what to do with it, how to do it. Midwestern Consulting is a highly respected engineering firm in Ann Arbor that took over the process. And it went through the various inspections and design plans, and it takes time. Eventually, the wall was completed and the homes along Coleman Street are secure. And I think Trustee Wilson brought up the fact that because of the design that it wound up taking, or the shape it took, some of the fences in the backyards of the Coleman Street residents no longer reach the now existing wall. We've asked, and I will say I've talked to Mr. Hull's attorney today and told him I was going to be here to make sure that if he wanted to be here, or Mr. Hull wanted to be here, he could be here. So, at any rate, that wall is now complete. The receiver's responsibility, although primarily to take care of the wall, was also to just try and keep the property maintained and free from blight. The receiver put those fences up that you see at the entrance of both alleys, those gates, and at this point in time, we were in court last week on a motion to require the court to order Mr. Hull and his company to cooperate with an additional inspection of the premises. We were able to agree on that, and that order was entered. The order that is dismissing the receiver hasn't officially been entered yet, but it will be this week. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce Carl Fink, Judge Fink, Receiver Fink, and he's here to explain what his participation in this was and answer any questions that you might have.
Good evening. I've served as a court-appointed receiver. That's an important technical term, court-appointed receiver, at the by order of the court, in this case Circuit Court Judge David Swartz. And we have receivers when in situations such as this, the parties for some reason can't get along and figure out how to resolve things themselves. So when you hear there's a receiver, it usually means that there's some problems there. And my task, what I'm supposed to do, is to do what the circuit court orders me to do, and that's usually framed in an order that the attorneys have prepared and agreed on. And during the course of a receivership, I pay attention to what the orders are, and I pay attention to what if an attorney or party raises a concern about what I'm doing or not doing, then I pay attention to that. And that's how I conducted myself throughout this. I didn't have, when I started as receiver, nobody said, and here's $500,000, go ahead and fix the property. I was given the authority to collect the rents and to use those rents as absolutely necessary, but not to bring the property where it looked good or even to try to make everything functional or safe. I spent time when I would hear a complaint from the tenants, which were folks that were paying the rent, then I would respond to that, and as I said, I would respond if I heard something from the attorneys. In terms of whether I was required to make repairs, I made some repairs that were absolutely necessary with the limited funds I had, and some repairs that the tenants, if the tenant has a leaky roof and they're paying rent, then that's a priority. What I did in every instance was to contact the owner and say, here's something that needs to be done on this property. Do you want to do it, or do you want me to go ahead and do it? And the reason I did it that way is because it's easy for me to spend what amounts to somebody else's money. They can find somebody to do it at a different price, or just somebody that they trust, and they don't have to wonder about why I'm doing it. With the NAMDAR, on occasion they would have, somebody would say, we'll do it, and they would do it. Other times, no, we're not going to do it, you go ahead and find somebody to do it. And primarily we're talking about roofs, and then I would have somebody patch, not fix, just try to make it work. As to the wall, has been stated, that was the primary task. I'm not an engineer. I hired competent people to advise me as to what the wall should be. They had to, it's not a simple matter of just putting up a wall. They had to do soil testing. They had to look at make sure the trees had to be cut down to be able to do the work there to make sure that, because that would interfere with any wall. I followed the advice of the experts that I had. I kept the involved parties informed as to the information that I had, and I went ahead and proceeded along the lines of the advice I was receiving from the experts. It was a complicated task. The wall is closer to the property than the previous wall, and that's because the experts and the builders said it had to be in that location to be able to be properly anchored and do the job it's supposed to do. So that's the way it was, and I've told in the past if somebody's had a complaint, I serve at the pleasure of the court. If the judge says we don't want you to be a receiver anymore, I would leave, and that's what's happening now. We've reached an agreement that I should not be a receiver, and as I said, I've also attempted to be responsive to complaints within the framework of what I'm supposed to do. I get paid, and the way I get paid is I have to file a petition with the court saying this is what I did and I'd like to be paid. And that's the process that I've gone through. That's just generally where we are. The wall is done, and I'm happy to hear that the plans that Mr. Hall has, I can remember shopping there. In fact, one of my former law partners had a law office in the shopping center. Any questions you want to ask me? Yes, sir.
Okay, just for the sake of clarity, I'm not taking one side or the other here. In layman's terms, can you explain now, the receivership has been collecting rents?
Yes.
I'm assuming that money's in a fund somewhere?
A good question.
Where, what happens with that money now?
It's probably been 2 months now, but I gave a complete accounting to the parties of all the money that had come in, tenant by tenant, month by month, all the expenses. As a lawyer, when you receive other people's money, you put it in a separate account. And that's what I did. I have a separate, I think it's probably called Gault Village receivership account, something of that nature. That money's there, I have to account for it. Now that we're getting to the end, there is some money left, and I'm expecting that that the court order that's sent to me will tell me to, once I've paid the remaining expenses, that I should turn the money over to somebody, probably Mr. Hull's company. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
How much was it? How much you hold? Right now, I think I'm holding about $70,000.
So the rest of the money from all the rents went to the wall?
No, they went to some other things, they went to things in connection with the wall, but other repairs that I made over the course of the time, some for my expenses. Yes.
Who paid for the wall?
The wall was paid out of the money that I received from tenants as receiver. That's in accordance with, that's why the judge, that's why the judge ordered the money to be paid to me, so I had money available to pay for something.
How much was the wall?
I think the wall and all the related expenses, and part of it was when they got into the building of it, they found that they had to revise the plans because of and I don't want to say the reason and be wrong, but the contractor said that they had to revise the plans. Midwest Consulting and other folks in the township were involved in looking at that, and as I said, one of the things I relied on was the advice I received, and they said, yes, we have to do that modification, which was unfortunate. I believe that it was about everything, is about $360,000.
What was that, 360?
About 300, and don't hold me to that dollar, but that's an estimate. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Mr. Hall, I'm
Yes.
glad to hear that you're moving forward and you're gonna work with the township to resolve whatever issues there are and to bring us something that we need in this community. My question to you is, are you going to take into consideration the socioeconomic status of the community when you're evaluating the stores to bring into this shopping
Absolutely. We're
area?
wanting your all's feedback. That's why we put a site together, and
Okay.
of course, my wife put a Facebook.
So is there a way that you plan on surveying the community to find out what our needs are as far as what's being offered in this shopping area?
Yeah, go ahead, address it. That's
Would you
fine.
mind if I addressed you? I put together a Facebook. I don't know if you're aware or if you're one of the members. I'm not sure because we have 175. Thank you, members, and there is a poll on it. You're welcome to add anything. We want to give you that you're the neighborhood. We're not the neighborhood. We don't live here, and I wanted to address that also because I know that you guys probably don't even trust us. I mean, let's be honest, okay? And we did get off to a bad start, okay? But I feel like that we're going to work together, and we want to give you guys what you want. We're from Louisville, Kentucky. I rode through your wonderful neighborhood today. Well, I rode through it before, but today, and some of the houses there remind me of a home that I grew up in. So we want to give you what you want. We have a Facebook. If you want, I'll even leave you my phone number. You can call me. How about that? Will that work for you?
I'm a tenant at the Gault Village Center, and Mr. Roberts defense, I called up Mr. King on several occasions to get some things fixed, and needless to say, he kind of ducked my phone calls several times. And from my understanding, receivership was supposed to actually fix the repairs, but after countless amounts of rain and we calling a million times to get someone as a roofer to come by and do a quick little patch job, I went through a lot of extensive damage. So I don't know how well the receivership actually followed orders like it was supposed to have done. And that wall, your Bill Ellington came by and said, "Oh, isn't such a beautiful wall?" Oh yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous wall. I agree. But I think the tenants themselves needed actually some roof repair and lighting repair, which, the township knew, but yet neglected and did nothing about it. Rent, and on top of that, paying for their services, and Bill Ellington driving every day, sitting in the parking lot a couple hours every day, wasting our tax dollars money. Having the fire truck come by, hoist all those people up on the roof, and all of a sudden, mysteriously, my roof leaking. Frustrations with the township are too many. I went to open the store on Whitaker Road, and I'm battling the township throughout the whole time. The whole time. It should be more welcoming to businesses that want to open something here, to bring something to the community. But they keep shutting the door. Unless you're a big corporation, that's my thoughts, and that's how it was all laid out according to my experiences with the township. So, Mr. Hall did have his hands tied behind his back. I've called Carl Fink. Oh yeah, the landlord has to approve it. This is when Namdar would. Oh yeah, landlord doesn't approve it, but what am I calling you for? Why am I paying you rent if you cannot get these things fixed?
Are you asking me a question now?
No, that was my statement. I didn't ask any
I don't
questions.
want to get into an argument with you, but I want to challenge you on that. I was not dodging phone calls. If I was not as responsive as you thought I should be, I apologize for that. But that anyway. And did people come to work on your roof?
When? How long did it take
people
them?
come?
A week, 2 weeks after? A week,
So
2
your
weeks
answer is
after the rain stopped?
Yeah, that's it. I don't want to argue with you, but and I am not a roofer, as you probably can imagine. So I'll take your answer that somebody did come. Thank you.
After the fact, if the house is burnt down, and then I call the fire department 2 weeks afterwards, then what good is the house in rubble? I don't get it.
Can I ask which business you have there?
I own the beauty supply. What good is the township with the fire department there when the house is burning and they come after the fact it's already burned down? Does no justice. Waste of tax dollars. There's a lot of hidden truth and a lot of falsifications, and everyone can kick the can and pass the buck around and say it's everyone else's fault. But when do we take ownership of what we've done? That's the catch.
I've listened very carefully to everything that I've heard you say. I'm sorry that you're not happy with the services, business-related services of the township. Our bread and butter are all the small businesses in the township. We have a business registration ordinance that requires all businesses to register. I think there's about 400. And we know there's many, many more out there. And in the end, whether it's compliance with property maintenance for ordinance or building code requirements, I don't know what the issues were with you. It sounds like it was probably either zoning or building, is my guess. In the end, all we're looking for is business owners to meet the minimum code requirements, whether it's building codes, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, or the zoning requirements, so on and so forth. And if you had difficulties, I would encourage you and invite you to come and see me. We can sit down and talk through it. It was the first I've heard of it at my level. And I also wanted to just clarify, the township is not and was not responsible to maintain or repair this shopping center or any other shopping center, industrial factory, house, anywhere at any time. That's not something that the government does. This was put in the hands of a receiver that was put in place by the court as a substitute originally for the Namdar Corporation because they, quite frankly, were doing that.
What's the purpose of the receivership? If you can explain, like I'm just wanting to know, because really, he said that I'm not an expert, Mr. McLean, but I had to become an expert to figure out what this receivership was. I bought properties in foreclosure receivership, but never a property maintenance receivership situation. So honestly, it's my ignorance of buying the property. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. But I really wanted the property really bad, and I wanted to help the community, so I went ahead and signed what I had to sign to get the property. But I'm just curious, I don't know exactly what is the receivership?
I'll defer to the attorney because that's a legal question, but I will say.
Sure. What was in other words, what was the purpose of Namdar's, what was the purpose of the receivership with Namdar? Not necessarily with me, but with Namdar.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Robert, that
yeah.
You didn't know the entirety of what you're getting into.
No, I didn't.
I think the very first time you and I spoke, you had no idea that you didn't buy the whole shopping center.
No, I didn't.
You only
You're right.
bought the
I
piece
was
of
lied at the auction.
building
There's a couple
where
parts
the
I didn't
Kmart
get.
used to be in that entire
Yeah, I still
parking
pressed
lot.
on.
He doesn't own that, that's,
Yeah.
but he wasn't aware of that, so we were trying to help inform you, because the due diligence prior to was maybe a little lacking, and
Well,
not being from the area, it's perhaps understandable.
Well,
But in the end, we do, our interests are the same.
Okay.
And we would like to work together.
And I want to work together with them. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead, give me a shot. Let's kill this lawsuit. Because you can always refile it again, right? I mean, you could refile it. It's not a big deal. If I don't do what I say I'm going to do.
Hang on. We're not going to do legal negotiations.
Okay, I'm just saying, if you want to help the community, help me help you.
Can we table some of that and
Sure.
since you have this whole audience?
Sure.
And tell us what you plan to do, and then you guys can hash that stuff out.
Can I say one thing?
Perfect.
This is my husband. I've been married to him 18 years as of yesterday. And
Yeah,
he's,
we came up for our anniversary, and it's her birthday today.
my birthday's today. There's no better place I'd love it.
Well,
Because it was
people
important to
coming
my
despite you
husband.
Should be celebrating those things.
Because when he came home from coming up here, like the first or second or third time, I don't even know which time, he fell in love with this neighborhood. I'm just going to tell you straight out, we are not lawyers. You can tell we're not lawyers, okay? But we have turned shopping centers around, and if we were given a shot, if we can just get the shot, I know, I'm 100% confident we can do this.
Well, I don't think there's any problem with giving anyone a shot. But, you know, I'm listening to the business owner here, I'm listening to our officials up here, and I'm listening to you.
Thank you.
And what I would like to see from everybody is just clarity. You know, who's responsible for what? And I'm not pointing any fingers, you know, where was money spent? Why was money not spent someplace else? Again, I'm not an attorney, I don't claim to know your business, but as someone that's here, you know, in layman terms, like I said, just some clarity. And where is the process going? What stores are going in? You know, the socioeconomic status of what, you know, security issues.
I believe there's been a pretty good level of clarity here. Not under Mr. Hull's ownership, but when Nandar owned it, the court appointed a receiver to operate it.
I mean, you know, from this point going forward.
Well, just for the sake of clarity, you had asked where did the money go, who spent it for what, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The receiver was allowed to collect the rents when Nandar owned it. And he was charged with repairing that retaining wall along the Coleman Street alley, because literally it was structurally failing. And those homes and some of their sheds and whatnot, those accessory structures were in danger of literally
Do you know how much
collapsing
was
down into the
collected
alley.
collectively as a whole from day one of receivership thus far? Do you know the total lump sum?
I don't have that, the township
Just
did
an
not.
average?
Yeah, the township didn't collect or spend any of it.
$400,000 and there's $70,000, so that's $470, but there's gotta be more, correct?
Whatever those
Because
5 tenants were paying.
engineers that constructed the wall, their design was kind of shot, so it had to be redone again, from my understanding. So then, once again, you know, the receivership money that they collected, you know, got wasted. So, you know, more litigation, more, you know, hidden agendas, or maybe, you know, waste of dollars, because none of it made sense.
Well, none of the receivership money went towards litigation. The receiver is not a party to this lawsuit.
Is Mr. Carl Fink, he was getting paid, correct?
The receiver is paid for the
Right,
duties.
sure didn't go to fixing it.
I think there were a lot of things that were fixed.
Yeah, he got paid, but
The
we
wall
got
was,
screwed in the end.
it's very obvious you're a disgruntled business owner here
More
in the
than
township.
after, you know, dealing with township.
Mhm.
I mean,
Okay.
past track history record shows, you know.
Well, I respectfully disagree, sir.
Well, I mean, you can respectfully disagree because we're in America. How can you disagree with your statement? too?
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But the question was asked for clarity where the money got. Mr. Fink, as the court-ordered receiver, collected those rents for a number of months. He used them to demolish the existing wall, replace it, and what maintenance-type items he was able to do with the money that was available. He was, as you heard him say, he was not
given the authority to do any improvements.
So-
Or do wholesale repairs of code violations.
Should he pay for any of the maintenance, like lawn mowing, snow plowing, or anything like that?
I don't believe that I did, and to the other gentleman, I'm sorry when I started arguing with you, I know that you're not happy about the situation, and it's past, there's nothing I can do about that, but it looks like we're in a position now where things are going at a different tack, and hopefully that'll work out.
So it's my understanding, with the township having receivership, Mr. Hall could do nothing to go forward.
Township doesn't have receivership.
No,
The
no,
receiver's a
that's
third party.
absolutely not.
Third party,
That's
well,
absolutely
okay, so
not.
with the receivership, Mr. Hall couldn't go
No,
forward.
Mr. Hall had provided, the court asked him and said, provide the township with your timeline to move forward with repairs and improvements. He provided this timeline. The receivership was in place. The wall hadn't been completed yet. It hadn't even been started in November of last year. So he was free to spend his resources to start knocking off these punch list items on the timeline that he gave us since November of last year. And that you can address him in terms of why most of it wasn't done. I don't really know. I'm sure there's a plausible explanation.
There
But
is.
in the end, it's his property and it's his business.
Are you asking that question towards me? I mean, I can answer that if you'd like.
I just wanted clarification on,
Okay.
with it being
Sure.
in receivership,
Yeah.
if your hands were tied, you couldn't do anything.
Well, it's not that I couldn't do anything. Like I said, I didn't understand this receivership, but like, you know, Mr. Dennis McLean said, I became an expert, figure out what the duties of a receivership is. The actual duties of the receivership is actually on the website, the order, if that makes sense, from NAMDAR. You can read it yourself. I mean, it's the order. It says that they're supposed to make repairs. They're not supposed to fix the site up. That is my responsibility, but I stopped after I got the demo order. So are you gonna spend money and put a brand new car stereo in a car? It's gonna be smashed? Of course not. You're not gonna do that. So,
So Mr. Hall, at this point, do you own the entire property, or is it still owned by multiple parties?
well, there's a section that's owned by Mr. McLaughlin, I think, and then another parcel that's owned by a separate party. But the majority of it, yes, I do own that. So, but the question that I want to bring to you guys is, and like I said, we are going to work together, but so you understand, the receivership's supposed to make repairs, so they made the decision to fix a wall. I don't know what kind of condition it is. It seemed to be fine condition to me. It wasn't causing any harm's way. But instead of fixing a roof that has rain coming through it, they decided to fix a wall. I don't know. I think I would have fixed the roof with the rain coming through it, but that's just me.
So do you think you got stuck with a lot of stuff that you didn't know about?
I knew about the condition of it, and I was willing to take that on. The issue is, like I said, and it's on the website, what we thought, where we see the red flags. Like I said, we made a decision to purchase it back in November of 2017, and then of course we did the final order. I think it was the order that says that I'm able to buy it, but I got to become a defendant, if that makes sense. And receivership would continue. I think that was done. What was that, February? I think, or something like that. Of course, I didn't sign it because I didn't own it, and then when I closed, then we had to sign it that following November. So basically, that's what happened. But I was thinking in terms of, since it happened in February, I'm thinking a wall. How long does it take to build a wall? Maybe 3-4 months, maybe at the most, even if you knock it down. So I was thinking in my head, okay, I'll do this defendant thing for 3 or 4 months. After that, the wall's built, the receivership will go away, the lawsuit will go away. I'll have my shot, and I'll be able to use the rents and extra income to fix this thing up like I want to, like I normally would do. But like I said, when I say my hands are tied behind my back, sure, I could have made improvements, but I didn't want to do that because it's going to get demoed. Why would you?
How much is it going to cost to take it from the dilapidated condition that it's in now to make it profitable for businesses?
Probably about $1.5–2 million.
1.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have that much more time probably. But, I just want to say I'm grateful to kind of all parties. I mean, I think obviously NAMDAR never came or gave a crap, and you guys are different from that, and that's really encouraging. To the business owners that stuck it out, through this process, and to the township for trying to go for some accountability. You guys have been coming to community meetings for years, giving us updates, trying to hold someone accountable for this, and as a constituent, I want that, in my corner. And I guess I have 2 questions, but I'll just start for you.
Sure.
You guys is there anything in the way at this point for spending that $2 million and getting this up to code?
The demo order. The demo order is still outstanding.
Which it's not an exclusive demo order.
Right.
It's either demo or fix.
Right.
So what is stopping the or fix part?
Well, the way I read it, I could, guys, go to gaultvillage.com. It's on the website. I'm transparent, you know. When I read it, it seemed to me when I read it that, hey, the officials think it's too dilapidated to repair. It's not worth fixing, and not only are they good, they wanted us to pay for the demolition as well. So to add insult to injury, you know. And then I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I mean, what about the existing tenants like Family Dollar, like, you know, Sung over there? I mean, what happens to them? You know, where are they going to go?
Yeah, what does happen?
So but why can't you fix it?
We can fix it, and we're going to fix it. But like I said, there's a demo order, you know. So
or fix order.
Well, no, it ain't an or fix. If you okay, you need to go. You need to look at the demo order, and then you read it yourself, and you tell me your conclusion. Because when I read it, I was like, oh, it's time. It's lawsuit time.
I guess I'm wondering too. Is
Yes.
that your attorney in your camp is saying it's an exclusive demo order, and our attorneys over here are saying it's demo or fix. Is that an issue at hand?
If it was I mean, the way I read it, and you know, the way my attorney read it as well, it's a demolition. It says condemnation,
Who would decide
demolition.
what the interpretation of the order would be then?
A judge.
There are two ways to cure code violations. You either fix them or you abate them, get rid of them.
So is the
And it's
township
the owner's
giving
choice.
him, Mike, is the township giving him a specific, like you said, fix or demo? When is the absolute, is it
And when's the deadline for the
this
demo?
stuff? And by the end of this year, because the year's almost over?
Right. The original code, the original notice of violation that was given to Namdar, this 1,000 pages, was then also given to Mr. Hall when he acquired it. We went through the legal process. When he bought it, the receiver was already in place.
Right.
He knew the receiver was collecting rents
Okay.
because he bought it in that condition. Yet, the
What
court
is-
asked him to provide us with, what are you gonna do and when are you gonna do it? He did. And most of it did not come to fruition. You can read through what he provided us. Most of it was to be completed by spring, summer, fall of this year. And I think, I'd have to ask our chief building official, because there were some other events that occurred in between. I don't recall when it was. I think it was maybe early this year. Mr. Hall brought another interested party to meet with us to talk about the future.
So Mike, are you
Give a
saying
name.
that there's no way that this can happen then, and we're just waiting to demo it? I mean,
We're waiting for the place to either be repaired and brought back into compliance.
What's the
Or if
timeline?
that's not.
What is your
going to happen.
timeline?
Yeah, what's your timeline for issuing the demo?
Say again? What is your timeline?
What is your
What's the
timeline for
township's
issuing the demo?
timeline?
How long does he have?
I had 60 days.
Well, we've been under notice of violation to make these repairs for 4 years.
Okay,
Yeah, but
you
not
don't
with
think-
him.
No.
Only a year with this gentleman.
Right.
Okay. So how long does he have?
If he started making repairs and showed good faith, which is what the court was looking for, when we talked, and I'll defer to our attorney also, but when we asked, can we end the receivership so I can get the rents? And the court said, well, give us a timeline, show us good faith that you're making progress, and we can talk further about it. And nothing happened.
Okay.
So where does that leave us? What's our next step?
Yeah, I understand.
what if things start to happen?
We would love to see things start to happen.
So, Mr. Hall, when is your, when, you know, because I'm looking
As soon as we
here
get
like,
the order of receivership dropped, we will start right away.
so when you get the paper.
Yeah, because we want to get something that's concrete. That's why I wanted to go in.
Well, if it's under receivership, he never had ownership, so I mean, he just
Oh, he
now
owns
getting
it.
out of receivership, so he.
No,
No,
he
it's
absolutely
more
owns it
complicated
for
than
the
that.
last year.
But my idea,
He
when,
wants to sell it, receivership, so I understand
My-
what you're saying.
after doing my research on the receivership and looking at the receivership, the question I had in my mind was, okay, Namdar didn't fix the violation, so what's the purpose of the receivership? Why would someone give receivership? Hey, Mr. Namdar's not doing his job. We need to take this over so we can get the violations fixed. That was my understanding what a receivership is, because the current owner's not doing his job, so it goes into receivership to fix the violations because there are health problems.
I
There's
do have a
issues.
question.
So, Mr.
Do
Hall,
the
I
previous
mean,
owners
based on
just
what I
walk
heard-
away free and clear?
Right.
And the new person that's
Have to
trying to
take
do
over.
justice by us
says, don't try it. What happens to those two previous people that were involved that you've been waiting on for 4 years?
Yeah, exactly.
McLaughlin sold the property to Namdar. in a
So he
decision.
was cleared.
So he was cleared, and then Namdar put it up for auction, and Mr. Hall bought it. And we were hoping that Mr. Hall would jump in
And
take-
pick up the mistakes of the previous.
Yes.
Right. Is that fair in all justice?
No. Well, he knew, I'm not gonna go. He knew what he was buying, and he knew what he was getting into.
It
He's
sounds
told
like-
you that.
It sounds like it's gonna sit there.
It's like wrecking your car and then selling it to someone
Yeah.
as a big hunk,
All right.
hunk of wrecked vehicle. You know what you're buying,
Okay.
you know what needs to be done, and the person that sells it gets to walk away. Unfortunately, that's.
Yeah, guys, I've already replaced the main roof on Family Dollar. I've done a lot of them. I took the Hollywood video signs down. I did this in the very beginning because I wanted to show good faith. I was thinking that, okay, they didn't get the wall done when they started, they were supposed to start the process in February 2018. And then, here we go, it's August, and still no wall. So I'm thinking, okay, I have to close on this property. I mean, I've already signed up, I'm not getting my money back. So I close on it, and I'm thinking, okay, the next thing I gotta do is I gotta give them some kind of paperwork that says what I'm gonna do. And I'm thinking during this time, okay, maybe by October they'll have the wall done. Again, no wall, because I want it out of receivership. I want to collect the rent so I can put it back into the property. That's not what Mr. Fink did. Mr. Fink decided, hey, instead of a roof that's raining in, let's go ahead and give a beautiful wall, something that's very decorative. You know, because they wanted to do something like a 2040 township master plan, which they want to put condos, and it's all on the website. The whole thing is explained. I didn't know this when I bought the property. They had a new concept for the actual property itself.
So it still seemed like everything was dumped on you?
It is, it was dumped on, but it's okay. You know,
No, it's not okay.
Well, it also sounded like that retaining wall that they had to redo, it either was gonna get done or there was gonna be property collapsing down in there. And then who's responsible for that? Is it gonna be the township? Is it gonna be you? So I think that retaining wall, and I've never seen it yet, I've heard it's very nice.
It is nice, it's a beautiful.
But it sounds like they've accomplished the potential problem, because if you were one of those homeowners there, and I'm not, but if you were one of those homeowners there, and knowing that your shed or part of your house could end up in the back of the village.
You're right, and you know, I agree with you. The wall had to be repaired, it does. I mean, but
That
when we
should
got
have been
bids,
a
we got
top
bids of
priority.
$50,000, $60,000, not $370,000. So, you know, we could've used that, the rest of that money and fixed the raining roof in, we could've put brand new lights out, we could've repaved the parking lot. There's all kinds of things that could've been done that wasn't done. And I didn't really understand the receivership, so, you know, that's my fault too. I should've really.
I just wanna say, I do not like, I don't like the use
Clap your
of.
hands if you can hear me. Mike Radzick, and then there are several hands in the room.
Excellent.
Okay, go ahead.
I just don't like the use of these trigger phrases, this luxury wall, this decorative, whatever. The reality is, the wall collapsed at least twice. People that knew what they were looking at looked at it and said, yeah, you can repair it, it's just gonna keep collapsing, it's got to be, it's not structurally sound, it's gotta be replaced. And that was going to happen regardless of what it looked like.
Yeah,
And as Mr. Fink indicated, it got to be a complicated engineering task. And Midwest Consulting has been a highly regarded engineering firm in Washington County for many, many years. And they did it, it wasn't exorbitant charges. They worked directly for the receiver, who in turn was working for the court. It was not the township's fault. We reviewed the engineering plans and issued the permit and did the inspections like we would if they were building a Walmart. Same thing. In terms of receivership, like I tell a lot of folks, if you don't understand it, consult your attorney, because he's been in court every single time. And he's the one you're paying to get legal advice.
And that's why we put the stuff on the website. Once I figured out what a receivership was and their duties. Their duties is to repair.
Obviously, whatever's on the website is not what the court authorized this gentleman to do.
It's in the order.
And
Just
if
look
it,
on the website. It's
and
in the order.
personally, if it was a choice between repairing or replacing a wall that's collapsing where people's literally yards up and, you know, elevated way high are gonna collapse, or fix the roof on a vacant space, I'm gonna fix the wall.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Yeah, and anybody that's ever worked with that kind of stuff, unless you personally do that for a living, you have, whether it's you or anybody else in this room, and including me, I have no idea what it cost. I know construction stuff is extremely expensive, and it has to be done a certain way. I just retired from Yucca, and I've dealt with stuff there, and our incinerator's a multi-billion-dollar piece of equipment. And unless you physically have worked on that, you have no idea how it operates and what it costs to run and everything else. So I have no complaints with that law.
I just have one last thing, and then I'm answer questions and I'm done. Okay? 'Cause I think this has been going on a while.
Can we respect everyone else's time?
Absolutely.
And do something,
I was just
move forward?
I was
Yes.
just gonna say that I'm really respectful of people's differences of opinion here and people's time. So let me breathe. There's obviously a squabble between the township and the owner. This is not the appropriate location to air that out and to do that. You do it through council meetings, through committee meetings, through back channel communications between lawyers, not in a public airing where you add, honestly, backlighting, right? Snide comments that are on the cusp of civility. And honestly, in all sincerity, you do not come across well in this meeting because of it.
I'm glad you gave your information so we know, so I know.
I'm just
So
being
I'm
honest.
glad
I'm
you
trying to be
did.
transparent with
I'm
everybody
glad you
here.
did.
That's why I'm here.
We got a question back here.
Sure.
So I appreciate that you're willing to make the effort to repair this disaster that we've been living with for years.
Sure.
Clearly, we need a new timeline for him to do what you want him to do, right? And it needs to start with fixing this gentleman's roof, right? And then, it's time to move forward. You know, this has been painful for us to watch, and I just want to know what's going to happen. So, is there a plan to put a new timeline in place, or are we just going to kind of see how it goes?
You're asking me?
I'm asking anyone.
I would love to see a new timeline.
We just need a new order that says, hey, if Mr. Hall fixes the property, which we don't have now, we'll stop the demo order. Because we do have a demo order out there right now. It's on the website. You can read it for yourself.
No,
Those are things that seem like they should be between the attorneys and. We were so excited to come here.
Yeah, and what I think everybody's here is wants to know what's gonna happen with this eyesore that we're trying to look at.
It seems to me a timeline would help all parties, right? You said you had a timeline, he didn't meet those dates, he said there's a reason why, so new timeline and we can move forward, yes?
Sure.
That's what it says.
Well, we've all agreed to, he's going to open up. We didn't get a chance to go inside all of the spaces the last time because we couldn't get access to all of them. But he's agreed to provide that, and we're going to go through like we did before and photograph everything and kind of refresh the list of what we see. And in terms of what is tackled first by the property owner, that's between him and his tenants.
Fair enough.
I have a question.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just have, hopefully will be a quick question to try to get past what seems to be the impasse in this whole situation. Have you guys considered sitting down with a mediator to try to iron out these differences so that we can find the path forward? Because it sounds to me he's stuck in whether he's reading the order right or not reading the order right. The fact that he doesn't want the demolish order in place. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying that's where he's stuck at. And you're stuck in the fact that essentially you want to have the demolish order there, which is standard practice, or fix it. So if you could work out some language where we could move forward, and maybe you require a mediator to do that, then we could move forward and they could get the answer to the questions that they really want. Is that a possibility?
The sooner we get the inspection results and sit down with Mr. Hull and his attorney, we can probably act as adults and come up with a timeline. If he's willing to start and seriously get moving, the township's not gonna impede that. The judge isn't gonna allow that. So it will move forward if Mr. Hull's serious.
And you said as soon as you get the inspection report?
Yeah. Did you hear, Mr. Radzik? We've got a court order that was just entered last Wednesday that Mr. Hull and his attorney agreed to that allows another inspection. There were a number of units they couldn't get in. Once we have all the information, we'll present it to Mr. Hull, and he can get moving. If he doesn't, then we'll be going back to court and asking for other relief. But if he's serious about doing this, then there ain't gonna be a problem down the road.
When will the receivership be resolved?
It's already been placed on the record. In fact, to be honest with you, Mr. Hull's attorney and I talked today, and he has the proposed order, and I'm waiting to get it back. There's an issue on where the remaining funds actually have to go to. So that'll get resolved in the next day or two. So it'll be over this week, officially. Okay?
Well,
Any other questions?
yeah. At this time, I really want to thank everyone. We have one more? Oh.
I'm just gonna make this question real quick. I remember you answered something much earlier in the evening, and I don't quite remember. How many properties like this do you currently own?
11.
11. In those 11 properties, could you give me an idea of your occupancy rate over the last, say, 3 to 5 years?
It's about 80%.
About 80%?
Yes.
If, I hope the township is listening to me, if Mr. Hull is trying to make good faith movements towards his property that he owns, he wants to own the property, he wants to build the property, and he has a vision for the property, I understand lawyers, laws, and all of that. But at the end of the day, the world is people making handshakes and making agreements and making compromises. What onus is on the township to make a compromise and get things moving? Like, our township has a responsibility to try to look after the property and the residents. We are asking for some movement, not more arguments, more court, more legal language, but can't we make a good faith, dare I say, handshake agreement with a gentleman that wants to fix the property? Instead of saying, you must do this or do that. He's saying, well, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that because you've said you're going to do this. So here we are at this impasse. Can't we make a compromise?
And that's what Mike just addressed about that once they're getting ready to do this inspection report, they're gonna talk again, and they are coming together. So that's one of the things I think really sounds positive, is that they're gonna allow him this chance now. And I really wanna say again, to our business owners, to the township, and to the halls, I really thank them all for coming out to allow us to grill them. And I gotta say, I think we grilled them tonight.
Yeah.
But in the end, I really believe our township, as well as the new owners, are going to work together. I can see it. I think it is. There are legal matters, and anybody, if you've ever been involved in any kind of litigation, it just doesn't happen overnight. So I really want to say thank you to them for allowing us to come and really throw these harsh questions. But I really see that, I believe, because I know the frustration. Some of you have lived in this community 30 plus years. I've only been in this community 5 years. But I've been associated with this place as a child growing up. I remember before the freeway closed, Gault Village Shopping Center was very active. So there's a lot of things that have shaped the closing of why that place went down. And so we're looking forward to them partnering, and as well as us as citizens. You know, we want to see something happen, and that's why you're here tonight. So I personally want to say thank you all for your patience, and really thank you all for being civil tonight. I thought you all were very civil and handled things well. So again, I thank the hosts for coming all the way from Kentucky. Our business owner for coming out tonight.